Hi guys, it's Raythe here. I would like to again welcome you to a new miniseries called Raythe Reads Chapter 1s. I have many more gay romantic stories than just Dragon's Reign and Empire of Stars, so I thought I'd read the first chapters of some of them so you can get to know more of my characters and worlds. This time, I'm very excited to read the first 5 chapters or so of Ghost Neo Tokyo, another gay romance. In Ghost Neo Tokyo, a high-ranking Yakuza purchases a survivor in an auction. After Ghost destroyed most of his family and turned him into something called a survivor, Tristan Price is bought by a clan of powerful Yakuza who sponsor his family's move to Neo Tokyo. Duty and love come into conflict as beautiful Tristan and the powerful, sexy Yasuo Maeda, the clan boss's right-hand man, are drawn closer together. Now, before I read the first chapter of Ghost Neo Tokyo, please keep in mind I am only reading a sample of the story. This is not the next podcast. The only way to find out what happens in GNT, which is what we affectionately call Ghost Neo Tokyo, is to read it on my website, raytherain.com. This is a paid website that I set up before Patreon even existed, and your subscription dollars not only allows you to read everything I write, completed stories and ongoing ones, it supports the team so we can keep doing free podcasts just like Dragon's Reign. Chapter 6. Debt. As soon as the car glided onto the on-ramp for the highway, Tristan couldn't keep silent any longer. He expected his uncle to turn on the autopilot, twist around in his seat and talk to his nephews, offer platitudes that none of them would believe. Something, anything. But Richard was stonily silent. His mouth was flattened and his gaze twitched from the road in front of them to the rear-view mirror. Does he think they're following us already? Again, with the mysterious they. But how could they be? No one knows about Mom and Dad's deaths yet. But his uncle was clearly worried about being followed. He remembered Richard's statement when they had first met him outside the house, before they told him about what had happened. He thought that someone had called about him. He's worried about something else. Uncle Richard, are you in trouble again? Tristan asked quietly. Richard started and his head swiveled around towards him. His uncle's mouth opened and a surprised burst of air escaped. Well, why would you ask that? Just can tell, Tristan said. If he gave the reasons for his belief, Richard would just try to explain those away and not actually deny that something was wrong. He'd seen him do it with Dad. Do you think we need any more trouble than we already have to make me a little nervous? Uncle Richard's right hand rose to his tie and he tugged at it some more. The orange material was already half undone. I guess not, but it's clear there is, Tristan said. Richard sighed. My attempts to resurrect my business didn't go as planned this evening. In fact, it went disastrously. Something clicked into place. Do you do business with the Yakuza? Richard nodded jerkily, and he made an expansive arm movement. I told you, Tris, you can't do big business without bumping into one of them. They're really powerful. Really damned powerful. Legit business, Tristan asked, lowering his voice even more. He glanced back at Caleb, but he needn't have worried. His younger brother was curled in a ball, lashes wet with tears, and asleep. Wish I could hide from all this and sleep too, Tristan thought. Maybe on the plane I'll be able to catch a few Z's. I can't believe you listen to your mother too much about me, Richard vainly defended himself. When you're on the edge of big things, Tris, you have to be willing to do things that some might not consider kosher. They're in a gray area. Not black, gray. It hurt a little bit to hear Richard's lament against his mother. Georgia was not her brother-in-law's greatest fan, but she'd never get the chance to harangue Richard again, and Tristan found that he wanted to hold onto her by remembering her opinions. The Yakuza were meeting in the airport. Are they business associates? Tristan asked. Richard patted the air between them. Just leave things to me, Tris. Don't get yourself worked up with what you don't need to know. Part of Tristan wanted to do just that, lay back and let his uncle handle things. But his mother's voice floated in his mind. If there's a way for Richard to muck the universe up, he will. He could almost hear her sigh in the car. You've got to take care of your little brother, Tristan. You can't trust anyone else to do it, especially Richard. Uncle Richard, I need to know what's going on. This isn't just about you, but me and Caleb True, Tristan said, and crossed his arm firmly over his chest. Richard let out a hissed breath between his teeth. Tristan worried he was going to refuse again, but finally he nodded. All right. But you gotta understand, Tris, we're in a bad way here. We're doing something completely illegal. We can't go to good, decent people to help us. Tristan sank down a bit in his seat. This sounded worse than he'd thought. I get that. You told me that we're dealing with Yakuza. That's sort of self-explanatory. Yes. Richard rubbed a hand through his hair. I guess it's good we're having this conversation because... Because? Tristan prompted. See, I owe a lot of people a lot of money. You have Mom and Dad's chips for that. Tristan swallowed as he remembered Richard's grisly surgery on his dead parents' bodies. That's sort of the problem. We don't even have enough money to pay off my debts, let alone the customary fee to get to Neo Tokyo, Richard said with an uncomfortable wriggle. So we definitely don't have enough for both. And the people who get us into Neo Tokyo are the same people I owe the money to. You're kidding. Tristan wasn't sure how much money his folks had, but he knew they weren't poor. But clearly Richard had debts even larger than everything they had could pay off. Richard shook his head. I'm not, fortunately. So, what do we do? Will they still let us go to Neo Tokyo? We can't stay here. Tristan's voice rose up, and Caleb made a distressed sound from the back seat that had Tristan snapping his mouth shut. His brother drifted back off into a restless sleep. He whispered, Uncle Richard, what do we do? Richard tugged on his tie. His gaze flickered over to Tristan, then went quickly away. I've already taken care of that problem. How? What have you done? Tristan couldn't keep the accusatory tone from his voice, even as his uncle grimaced and shifted in his seat uncomfortably. Richard had done something wrong. He was sure of it. I did what I had to do, Tris, to get us out of here safely, Richard said, but he sounded slightly strangled. You've got to understand that first. What have you done? Tristan asked, spacing each word to give his repeated question emphasis. We will have to pay off the debt and also pay the transport fee. Your parents' chips will, as I say, take care of some of that. But leaving quite a bit still outstanding, Richard said, another flicker of his eyes towards Tristan and away. How do we pay it off then? Tristan felt his throat tightening. I told you how there are 7 Yakuza clans that run Neo Tokyo, didn't I? Richard stalled. Yeah, what does that have to do with anything? Tristan asked. He nervously twisted his calm bracelet around his wrist. Well, normally, as a survivor, you'd be allowed to settle in Neo Tokyo wherever you wanted, travel freely throughout the city and live a normal life. Relatively, anyways, Richard said. But when there is a problem with either the fee to get there or in our case, other reasons, survivor is, bid on. What? Tristan's voice went flat. And winning Yakuza clan will, you'll belong to them for a time, Richard said. A quick look at Tristan's white face and then away. I'll be a slave? Tristan couldn't breathe. It was like his throat was completely closing up on him. No, nothing like that. I told you that survivors are revered there. It'll probably just mean that you have to stay in the particular clan's territory and do what they say. For a time, Richard explained. Tristan stared at him unblinking. He felt like his insides had iced over. He couldn't speak. He couldn't even contemplate this. First, he lost his parents. Next, he was a hunted survivor. And now he was going to be a Yakuza clan slave? His brain simply wanted to shut down. I'm sure it'll be fine, Tris. They just want the benefit of having so many survivors in their territories. It's an honor for them to have so many. Richard cleared his throat noisily. A lot of people don't have the money to go to Neo Tokyo, so they're in this arrangement, and those survivors are happy as can be there. How do you know that they're happy? Tristan asked dully. Well, from what I hear, Richard said lamely, we'd have the money to go if we didn't have your debts, right? Tristan said through numb lips. Richard's head turned all the way to look at him this time. Tris, what are you saying? Give me my parents' chips, Uncle Richard. Tristan held out a hand. What? No, Tris, you're taking this much too hard. I'll use them to get passage for Caleb and me to Neo-Tokyo. You'll have to figure out your own way there, Tristan responded. He was surprised how cold and clear his voice was. It didn't even quaver once. Richard blinked at him, shocked. You don't understand. Oh, I do. I'm not going to slavery over your debt. You can be the one enslaved. They don't want me, Tris. Only you. Only survivor has value. Richard's voice rose. That's not my problem, Uncle Richard. You'll just have to work the debt off, sell the car, sell something else. But you're not selling me. Tristan's voice shook now. Richard had gone white. Nothing I have, even if I sold it all, will cover the debt. They'll kill me, Tris. What? Tristan asked. Richard licked his lips nervously. His eyes went to the rearview mirror again. I'd sell myself if I could. I'd stay behind and take my chances with the authorities, but I can't, Tris. I'm a dead man if I don't pay off that debt. If you don't help me, they'll kill me. A bullet between the eyes. It's all in your hands. My life is in your hands. Tristan fell back against the seat. Numbness and a sense of yawning despair wound up in him. His eyes closed. If I thought that the Yakuza would hurt you or misuse you, I wouldn't even contemplate this. But my understanding, what I've been assured of, is that this belonging only means that you live in their community and obey the Oyabun. Richard babbled. What's an Oyabun? Tristan asked faintly. The clan's boss, Richard explained. They could do bad things to me, Uncle Richard. If he was owned, he had no rights. The Yakuza could do whatever they wanted with him. Pour him out, beat him, starve him, whatever they wanted. They could do bad things to you whether you belong to them or not. In fact, Richard gave a hard bark of laughter, it might be better if you do belong to one of the clans, so you're safe from the others. Aren't there police or... Richard was shaking his head. The police are mostly powerless against the clans. They're only there to handle non-clan issues. You're a survivor, Tris. The only way you get into Neo-Tokyo is illegally, so no cops are going to lift a finger to help you. They know you have nowhere else to go. This is your only chance. And mine. What about Caleb? Will he be free? Tristan asked. Yes, he will. He'll be a full, free Neo-Tokyo citizen, Richard said. His expression was almost comically hopeful as he stared hard at Tristan. For his part, Tristan could hardly look at his uncle. If it weren't a matter of life or death, Tris, I would never ask this of you. Tristan wrapped his arms around his chest. He couldn't believe he was going to do this. But as much as he was finding a flickering flame of anger and hatred towards his uncle, he couldn't sentence the man to death. But what about me? What will being owned by a Yakuza clan do to me? Will it be worse than death? Or is Uncle Richard telling the truth that it won't be so bad? Fine. I'll do it. Richard's shoulders slumped. Thank you, Tris. Don't thank me. Tristan snapped. I hate you, Uncle Richard. I don't know if that'll ever change. I don't blame you, kid. Richard adjusted his tie. His lips twitched into a sick smile. I hate myself. Did you know that we have not only a growing YouTube channel where you can see official artwork, trailers, and more, but there is an awesome fan-run Discord as well? The Discord channel has hundreds of members, and there's always something going on. We include links to both the YouTube and Discord in the description. So if you're listening to us on Spotify, we hope that you head over to YouTube especially, because we really would love to hear your thoughts. And you can comment there, which you cannot unfortunately comment on Spotify, so we don't get to hear from you. So please join us at the YouTube channel, and we hope to see you there. Chapter 7, Auction. They rode in silence the rest of the way to the airport. Tristan tried to keep his mind blank, to not think of the what-ifs. His father had always told him that Thinking about something that had too many variables was a waste of time. It's like a squirrel chasing its own tail. Doesn't get you anywhere but exhausted. The image of his father's warm smile with his bright, straight white teeth rose up in Tristan's mind, and unexpected tears burned behind his eyes. Tristan scrubbed them away as Uncle Richard took them to the long-term parking lot at Chicago's O'Hare International Airport. The concrete structure rose up over 10 stories before them like some hulking behemoth. Richard slowed the car as they approached one of the 4 entrances. None of them were manned. A virtual intelligence monitored the license plates and would charge the appropriate amount based on time spent in the garage, the person's chip. Tristan wondered if they weren't leaving the mysterious they breadcrumbs all along their route out of town. He wasn't sure how they would get around most of the automated security that he had never considered before as anything but normal. Now Tristan felt exposed and wished he could be totally invisible. Glad I don't have a chip implanted like Uncle Richard does. He stared down at his own comm bracelet. I should get rid of this. They could track me with it. It's just a comm, not like it's personal or meaningful to me. Maybe the Yakuza who will own me will give me a new one. He shuddered and clutched the comm to his chest. He didn't want to get rid of it. It was his only out if he wanted to call someone, or reveal where he was, have them come get him. Who will I call? Jace? The authorities? Can belonging to the Yakuza be any worse than being taken by the government? Tristan's thoughts were derailed as his uncle drove them to the lower level of the garage. The aged concrete, laced with rusting rebar, seemed to weigh heavily on them. He could imagine the whole structure suddenly collapsing, pancaking on top of them. He gripped the strap of his seatbelt. It was then that he noticed that they weren't alone in the basement. 3 Japanese men, dressed in bright suits, one in mint green, another in a pale peach, and a third in a crimson red with thin ties and shiny, pointed formal shoes, were leaning against the far wall by the elevators. Richard pulled into a spot beside them. Are they Yakuza? Tristan whispered. Richard nodded. Don't speak unless absolutely necessary, and be polite, Tris. Very, very polite. The Yakuza approached the car, their shoes making clicking sounds against the concrete with each step. Richard was popping open his door with a wide, welcoming smile plastered on his face that looked more like a rictus. Naruze-san, Richard called to the man in the red suit. So good to see you. Thank you so much for coming out this evening and assisting with our needs. Naruze had a long, thin scar that extended from his hair to the right edge of his mouth. When he smiled, his skin crinkled there strangely. Plastic surgery could have fixed it to make it invisible, but he had chosen to keep the scar, which told Tristan that the guy wanted people to know he was tough. Richard-san, for you, I would come no matter what the time, especially if what you tell me is true. Naruze's flat, black eyes went to Tristan's still closed door. Tristan was frozen inside. He found he couldn't move. Raythe and his 2 associates looked like 3 poisonous flowers in the dank basement. He wanted to stay securely inside the car where it gave him the impression of safety. Caleb still lay curled in a ball asleep and unaware of what was going on. More than true, my friend, more than true. My nephew's just a bit shy. He's only heard of your great organization from vids, so he's a little overcome, Richard said, with that plastic smile growing larger. He came around to Tristan's door, intending to open it, but Naruze waved him off. No, no. Let me, Richard-san. Don't text yourself. Nakajima-san, why don't you take Richard-san over there, out of the way? Naruze was still smiling, but it didn't reach his eyes. Richard gave out a little laugh and allowed Nakajima, the Yakuza in mint green, to lead him about 10 feet away. His uncle's expression was a cross between hope and fear. When Naruze popped open his door, Tristan flinched. Naruze suddenly hunkered down in front of the open door and stared at him. Tristan drew back, but the Yakuza's right hand darted out and grasped his chin, holding him in place. No, no, don't be shy. I just want to see your eyes, Naruze said. He turned Tristan's head from one side to the other. They look correct, but let us see if they are real. They're real. I'm a survivor. Tristan cried out as the Yakuza suddenly was fishing something out of his pocket with one hand. He wasn't sure what Neruse was going to bring out, but he didn't think it was good. Neruse let out a soft laugh. Trust is in short supply when dealing with your uncle. I bet you know that, though. Richard is slippery as an eel, yes? Yeah, but he's not lying this time. Tristan swallowed thickly. Neruse clearly knew his Uncle Richard better than he had until tonight. I think I believe you, but the clan requires confirmation. Hold very still. This won't hurt, Neruse said. He took out of his pocket a rectangular piece of what looked like clear glass, but the circuit inside became visible, a veritable maze of them as he held the glass up in front of Tristan's right eye. There was a flash. Tristan blinked. He couldn't see anything for a minute, but his vision quickly returned, even though a white square kept showing up for a few moments before it faded away. Neruse looked down at the glass. Information scrolled over the surface. The information wasn't Japanese. Neruse mouthed something and nodded. He gave Tristan that shark-like smile. It looks like my belief in you was correct. He stood up and gestured for Tristan to exit the car. You are a survivor. Tristan got out on legs that felt weak. I have to get my little brother. He's asleep inside the car still. Neruse looked into the back seat at a sleeping Caleb. His expression was studiously blank when he looked up at Kristen. I think we should let him sleep until after. After? After what? Tristan asked. He swallowed hard. Were there more tests to make sure he was a real survivor? After the bidding, of course. Neruse was smiling that creepy smile that tugged on his scar. The clans are going to bid on me now? Tristan's gaze shot all around the room. There was no one else there but the three Yakuza, Uncle Richard, Caleb, and himself. He didn't know what he expected to see, a stage where he'd be paraded on or something, but it was just an empty garage. Neruse grasped Tristan's elbow and drew him over to the middle of the garage. Stand there, please. Ah, your uncle was not so gracious as to tell us your name. Of course he didn't, Tristan thought. He was too busy selling his find to them to save his own skin. I'm Tristan, he said. Tristan Price. My little brother is Caleb. Neruse nodded and smiled as if this was a normal meeting and not selling him to the highest bidder. Tristan-san, good to meet you. We will get this over easy. Just be still. Tristan glanced over at his uncle. Richard was tugging at his tie again. He gave Tristan a small smile that attempted to be comforting, but just had Tristan looking away from him in disgust. Anger ran through him. This wouldn't be happening except for him. How could he be so stupid? How could he have gotten into this situation? It's bad enough to lose mom and dad, but this? The unnamed Yakuza in peach had a black briefcase, which he set down on the ground about 10 feet in front of Tristan. The boy wrapped his arms around his chest again. At that moment, he felt all too keenly that he hadn't taken a shower after having sex with Jace. He felt dirty from that and now totally exposed as Neruse stepped away from him and he faced the black briefcase. The unnamed Yakuza opened the briefcase and began to adjust something inside, and suddenly the garage was filled with 7 holographic figures that surrounded Tristan in a circle. He swung around in fear and confusion. Stay still, Tristan-san. The connection isn't ideal, and we want them to see you and not a blur, Neruse ordered. Tristan's shoulders immediately curled inwards and he lowered his head. They were looking at him, examining him, because they were going to buy him. The holographic figures were mostly dim silhouettes outlined in electric blue. Only if they stepped forward would their features become recognizable, but for now it was like being surrounded by ghosts. Neruse's voice rose up like a carnival barker's. Honored representatives of the 7 clans of Neo-Tokyo, welcome, welcome. As promised, here's the survivor I sent you the information on earlier this evening. If you check your accounts, you will see that I have sent the confirmation of his status as a survivor to you all now. Neruse tapped on the clear rectangle, sending the information and gathered to them. Tristan trembled. Just look at the ground, he told himself. Shut it out. Don't listen to him. It'll be over soon, and I'll belong to one of them. I can't believe this. I just can't. He is available for sale to the highest bidder, Neruse said with evident relish. and he's worth quite a price. He's only 19. He has a long life ahead of him to serve you in whatever capacity you wish. Tristan's eyes shut. Serve them? Where was the reverence? He felt like a side of beef. Lift his head, Naruse-san, a rough male voice ordered. Yes, yes, he looks young, another voice chimed in with a throaty laugh. You didn't tell me that he was so pretty, yet another male voice added. Young, pretty, and a survivor. Maybe you will earn your fortune tonight, Naruse-san. There were more murmurs of assent and ribald male chuckles. Tristan gasped as Naruse grasped a hold of his chin and raised Tristan's head up forcefully. Naruse's black eyes bored into his. The rictus of a smile was on Naruse's face, which held no hint of friendliness. Smile, Tristan-san. Let them see how bright and beautiful you are. You need to get a big price to help your uncle. Can you make him take off his shirt? One of the figures asked with another laugh. Is he a virgin? Maybe that will add to his value. Tristan couldn't help himself. He jerked away from Naruse's grip. The Yakuza's eyes widened and then narrowed in anger. I'm not doing this. I can't. Tristan's nostrils flared. He stumbled back a few steps and turned to flee, but Nakajima was suddenly in front of him. Nakajima caught him around the throat. Tristan gave out a strangled cry as his neck was squeezed in an unrelenting grip. Tris, no! Just wait. Let me talk to my nephew, Richard cried. I could calm him down, please. Stay where you are, Richard-san. He'll calm himself, or we'll calm him down. Naruse's voice was tight with anger. He needs to learn his place. But suddenly, another voice rose up from one of the holographic Yakuza. Do not hurt the survivor. Nakajima and Naruse froze. The hubbub from the other holographic Yakuza totally ceased as well. Silence fell in the garage. Beta-sama. Naruse swallowed hard, and he immediately bowed low several times. Beta-sama, please forgive this unseemly... We have all seen the boy. We know he is a survivor. That is all that matters. We need not examine him like he is cattle to be purchased, Maeda interrupted. His voice was cold and low. It sent a shiver down Tristan's spine as he heard the mastery in it. All the other Yakuza seemed to respond to it, even though it was a young voice and not an elder's. Nakajima's hand loosened from Tristan's throat. The boy turned around to see what his savior looked like. The voice fit the man. Maeda had dark hair that was feathered back from an incredibly handsome face. He had a strong jaw, a sensual mouth, and strikingly high cheekbones. He was wearing a gray suit that accentuated a lean yet powerful form. His eyes, Tristan thought, they're like mine. He's a survivor too. Maeda had the cobalt blue eyes of a survivor. Those eyes were fixed on Tristan. The boy flushed and found himself tugging on the end of his braid self-consciously. Maeda extended a powerful, elegant hand towards him, as if they were in the same room, and he was asking Tristan to dance. Come. None will molest you further. All know the honor to give a survivor. They only needed to be reminded of it, Maeda said. Oh, okay, Tristan stammered. Maeda hardly blinked as he watched Tristan slowly step back into the center of the circle of holographic Yakuza again. Tristan looked only at Maeda, ignoring all the rest. The fear and sickness he'd felt since all of this began retreated the more he stared at the young yet undeniably powerful Yakuza. Will he win me? Tristan wondered. What would it be like to belong to someone like him? Tristan shivered. He shouldn't think like that. Shame coursed through him and his cheeks flushed with heat, but he couldn't help but hope that if he had to be sold, that Maeda was the highest bidder. Naruse was bowing again. Forgive us, Maeda-sama. We are most regretful of the actions taken this night. Thank you for reminding us of our duty. Let us get this over with, Maeda responded without looking away from Tristan. The boy needs rest, care. Of course. You are most wise, mighty Sama, as always. Naruse agreed eagerly. Let the bidding begin. I hope you enjoyed this sample of Ghost Neo Tokyo. I realize that everyone wants your subscription money these days, but in our case, Dragon's Reign and the next podcast are possible only because of our monthly subscribers. If you love Dragon's Reign and want to support what we do, why not sign up for a month or two? You'll have a lot to read, and you'll be making future episodes possible of the podcast. And remember, the only way you can find out what happens in Ghost Neo Tokyo and its sequel is to sign up for a membership at raythereign.com and to read the story there. I hope you check it out.